Have you ever wondered why you just constantly feel jittery and on edge? Well, that's because your nervous system plays a huge role when you're experiencing chronic stress. And so, what do I mean by that? Your nervous system, right? It runs throughout your whole body. It regulates how your mind and body responds to stress. So it takes in information from the environment, right? This comes in through the things we see, the things we hear, the things we smell, the things that we touch, and it can happen from the things we taste, right? All of our sensory factors is what our nervous system takes in that information. But when it's in this constant state of stress, so the stress becomes chronic, your nervous system is constantly activated, meaning it affects you both physically and your emotional well-being because your body and your mind are not designed to constantly be in a state of stress. And yet, when you are jumping from one situation to the next and your nervous system is going, wait a minute, why am I always activated? This does not feel safe. What is going on around here? That's why, because there's a lot going on and your body's like, I just need to feel safe again. And that's where your nervous system is coming into play, right? So let's talk for a minute about how exactly does your nervous system respond to stress? Well, first, stress, when you're in a stressful state, your body recognizes it the same as it does a traumatic situation, right? Or an accident, meaning stress happens, it activates your fight or flight response. And so when this happens for a lot of people, they might experience increased heart rate, more alertness, energy mobilization, which means that adrenaline, you get this surge of adrenaline to say, I got to physically get out of this situation. And so you remove yourself, right? That's that flight part. You get the energy to go. Well, typically speaking, our stress response on our nervous system, that activation is supposed to be short term to assess threats and get us out of the situation. It is not designed for long-term constant demands on the body. And so what happens when we have these constant demands? Our nervous system stays activated, right? We are constantly in this fight or flight of, I don't know if I'm coming and going. I don't know what's coming next. I have to prepare and brace for it. And that's because it's chronic demand that is not supposed to be happening. And so what exactly does this do to you when you are in this state of chronic stress, right? So when your nervous system remains in this prolonged state of activation, your recovery periods become shorter or they disappear altogether. And so I've had clients that I work with in my coaching program come in and say, Deidre, I can't calm my body. I feel like my nervous system is fried. And I've heard that a lot, right? And that's because if your mind and your body are constantly assessing for threat, it doesn't have time to recover. But if it's activated short term, like it's supposed to be short term with a recovery period, this doesn't happen, right? And that's where chronic stress is because recovery periods get shorter. Your nervous system is always activated. It cannot recover. You also start to have difficulty regulating your emotions, meaning you might feel like you're just very reactive, or maybe it comes out as anger because your emotions are kind of all over the place and they're kind of jacked up a little bit, right? It's harder to regulate because your body is not in a calm state. For a lot of people, fatigue and irritability will increase. So if your nervous system is always trying to be activated and it's assessing for constant danger because you're always stressed and you don't have that recovery time, you're going to get exhausted, right? Because adrenaline, that energy surge, again, is supposed to be short term. And so the next situation just might cause more irritability because your mind and your body are like, I'm not supposed to continue to do this. But you might not know how to get out of it. And so it's important, right, when we talk about our nervous system, we have to learn how to calm our bodies. It's not just our mindset we have to work on and how it affects our brain function that we were talking about in the previous video. And so if you didn't watch that and learn more about brain fog and the impact of burnout and chronic stress on your brain, I invite you to go watch that, and it'll be linked below. But today we're talking about our nervous system and what's happening in our body. And because when our nervous system is always activated, that adrenaline surge we get that's supposed to be short term, it depletes your body of energy. And we're talking about the energy your body uses to digest food, to decrease inflammation, right? Maybe to help you lower that cortisol by going for a walk. But none of that's going to happen because you don't have the energy. That's where the fatigue comes from. Because your nervous system's like, I've already used it all. I don't have any. And then again, if you're someone when you're stressed and you don't eat, you're not replenishing that energy and nutrition to your body because it's not going to digest it right. This cycle continues. And so, how exactly does this affect your performance at work? Right. And these are the conversations I have all the time because that's truly where it shows up first. If you're not recognizing at home with family and friends, you're going to recognize it at work because you spend a lot of time at work. And so if you're in this constant state of activation and this constant state of stress, you will notice at work that your focus and attention has reduced. So activities and tasks that take you a short time are going to take you 2 to 3 times longer because your nervous system has been so activated, right? And your brain is not fully engaged to the way it should be. You might also notice that with coworkers or even your supervisors, there's more conflict, whether you're instigating it or not, right? And part of that comes from if you're emotionally reactive. So emotional reactivity at work will increase, and so does conflict among peers. Or maybe just kind of a general, I don't want to keep doing this. That shows up as well. And so really paying attention to what's changed. Because when you're in that state of chronic stress, your ability to be resilient, to bounce back, to come back during a challenge, or ability to get through a challenging situation, it's already been depleted, right? So if you're somebody who can usually function well and think logically through a difficult situation, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know, I don't have the answers, you've been in a state of chronic stress for too long. And so your resilience, your ability to function in those challenging situations needs to be rebuilt up. It needs to be replenished. And that's what your mind and your body are trying to tell you. Maybe you're a leader at your workplace. And are you finding it difficult to make clear decisions, right? You're usually the one who's looked to for decisions, for clarity on projects, on urgent situations that come up, and all of a sudden you're struggling with those decisions. You're probably have been in a state of stress and your nervous system has been activated for way too long. And I know this might be hard to hear, but I also want you to hear me that there is a way out and there is support for your nervous system, right? And so things that I walk clients through all the time, whether it's through my workshops or my coaching program, we talk about creating these predictable work rhythms that you get to sustain, that you can sustain, which means you can function optimally and well with your health for a long time. But we have to create those predictable rhythms. So I talk a lot about our mind and our bodies are systematic and rhythmic, meaning we like what's predictable, right? Most people don't like change. And I've seen this recently in my personal life, but I hear it all the time from clients. You want me to change what? Well, yes, we need to embrace change because The change in itself can be difficult, but the outcome once we get through the change can be so rewarding. And so we have to embrace some change in order to get those sustainable work rhythms that we desire and we need, because our bodies function off that rhythm, right? We're so used to eating breakfast at, let's say, 8 o'clock, or dinner at 5 o'clock. And if it's 6 o'clock at night and you haven't eaten dinner, your body's going to be telling you, because it's used to the rhythm, right? People who have regular sleep schedules, if that's off by an hour, they feel it the next day because their body's like, wait a minute, something changed. We do well with consistency, but we have to change in order to create that consistency. In order to support your nervous system, I also encourage rest and recovery. Now, some people think rest and recovery means I have to take 2 full weeks off together, off of work, 2 weeks consistently in order to rest and recover. And while that works for some people, it doesn't work for everybody. And if you're a high performer, 2 weeks off work kind of signals to your nervous system, oh, something's wrong, right? Alarm bells go off. And so I want you to think about rest and recovery as it can be short-term things we do, right? It's small micro habits. It's small things that we build into our day that give our brain and our body a minute to go, ah, I can let down for a minute. It's okay. I can recover and work through what I was just doing so I can move on to something else. So it can be super small. And when I say micro habits, I'm talking 2 to 5 minutes. Does not have to be an extended period of time, but we have to build in rest and recovery in some way. We also have to pay attention to our physical body, right? So when our nervous system is always activated, it's constantly flooding our body with cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And if we don't do something with that cortisol, our bodies are going to store it. While physical movement is one of the best ways to release that cortisol and to release the stress. So you'll hear this a lot from people who love to run, right? Runners are notorious for saying, I just need to go for a run if they've been stressed. That running clears their mind and their body. There's other people, you might not be a runner, and that's okay. Any movement helps your body release it. Breathing practices are just as important, and I talk about this a lot, and that's because when our nervous system gets activated, and this happens with people who have anxiety as well, you stop breathing, you hold your breath, right? Something triggers a reaction that you go, you hold your breath. So then what happens from that? You breathe very shallow. Well, if we're not taking slow, deep breaths, we're not calming our nervous system. When we breathe slow and we exhale slow, our nervous system responds and goes, okay, I can relax again. So these are all micro habits and small ways to recover throughout the day, but we have to create these sustainable rhythms. And these work not just at work, right, for your career, but they can work in your personal life. And honestly, they're great things to help your kids learn too, so that when they become adults, they already have some tools that work for them. And so we have to remember that leadership practices need to reduce the unnecessary pressure. So as a leader, it is your job to help reduce some of the pressure if you can, not just add to the pressure. And so if you're thinking, oh, I like some of these ideas, but I don't know where to start, that's why I created the Stress to Peace Guide. It gives you my main two of my primary go-tos for helping people start to recover. And when you start to implement them immediately and you give it 2 weeks, you will notice a difference in 2 weeks. And I hear it from clients all the time. After 2 weeks of practicing it, right? They're first skeptical. They go, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. That's so helpful. And so check it out. It's a resource I provided for you. It's free to you. I will link it below, but it's also at stresstopeace.com. It's just a guide to help you start to get those quick wins, to start to recover from that stress and burnout. And it's designed to help your nervous system calm down. We need to support the nervous system in order to have that sustainable performance.